Meditation it's like mental exercise. It's quite literally the exercise of reminding yourself and returning to center, to equilibrium. Oftentimes people tell me, man, I can't meditate, my mind is too overactive. I think about too many things. And that's why you need to meditate. There's not a human being that cannot meditate, you know? Like maybe if I got in the gym for the first time today, I couldn't bench 225. But if I do it for the next 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, you know, I'll get there. You know what I'm saying? And that's what meditation is. It's like, is the exercise of managing your thoughts.
And I think added to that, what I hear is having a practice. For me, I call it prayer and worship. I'm submitted under authority. I know, okay, the enemy comes to steal, kill, destroy my sense of self, my sense of peace, my sense of hope. How can I move forward? Oh, I got kids, I got to provide my sense of any value. He comes to steal, kill, destroy. Okay, if I know what I'm facing, I know how to fight it. If God said in his word, man shall not live by bread alone, Jesus said that himself to the enemy, attacking his thoughts. If he said that from his word, how can you live without God's word? We're not designed that way. Clearly, we're not designed to live without every single word to be feeding on the word. So we feed our fat faces, we feed our minds with information from outside world, but we don't feed our spirit. And then we're searching. You have people, you have so many examples. You study the consequences of their life. They're going forward, they're making money. They're going forward, they're doing trips, they're escaping, they're trying to suppress. And then they end it and take their lives. I've had people in my life take their lives. I've had suicidal ideation in the past when I had all the money that I wanted in my sphere of influence. I had all these things, and ideation comes. Until you find truth, until you find the foe that you're facing, until you find that I already have the authority over this thing. And so that's where I stand on that, and it's easy to overcome because you are overcoming already. We're designed to dominate from beginning, dominion. But you got to know what you're fighting, and you got to know what you have to go forward.
You know, just in the vein of what both of them said, I think it starts with the foundation of self-honesty. And it's being honest with yourself about the things that you feel. I say it all the time, just because you can bench press 500 pounds doesn't mean that you should be walking around with a 500-pound suit of armor on all the time. I know that it annoys you and it bothers you and you're moving past it. But let's stick to the feeling part. It annoyed you and it bothered you, so let's sit in that space. And you sit in that space and you practice doing things that make you feel better. You practice doing things that make you feel differently. And your emotions, the way that we practice in therapy is, I tell my clients, your emotions are like clothes in your closet. You've been trained, your mind has been trained to take every shirt in your closet, put it on the pants, put on the socks, put on the shoes, you put on all your feelings. How many times have you not said, you don't say I feel angry, you say I am angry, right? I am this emotion. No, you're not, you feel this emotion. So what we learn in therapy is, I don't have to put on a shirt. I can observe it, I can touch it and feel how soft the cotton is, I can examine the hanger. I don't have to be a prisoner of my emotions. I can be an observer of it, but it takes practice. And in order to practice, you gotta be realistic with yourself about the things that you feel. Realistic with yourself about when you're afraid. Realistic with yourself about when your feelings are hurt. If you cannot be honest with yourself, you cannot practice properly managing your emotions.
So I've kind of mastered this honesty with myself, right? But another thing that I've done is I have friends that I can be honest with. Yeah. And they always tell me, only tell us this. Because if you tell anybody else, they think you're crazy as hell. So even when I want to snap, I call my friend, I say, you know, so-and-so people to get something they really don't want, all right? They think because I've been wearing these suits, all right, that I'm really corporate. They don't even know that other side of me, and he'll say, don't show it to them. My wife will say sometimes I'm going out, don't show them your real self. Please don't embarrass me like that. So how is it that we be honest with ourselves and not just drive ourselves crazy? Because as sometimes they say in the church, you know you terrible. You know you terrible, all right? God knows you terrible too. That's why he gave you grace, all right? How do we manage that conversation back and forth with ourselves, the good and the bad?
if I could just touch on this for a second, because I really want to hear what y'all got to say about this too. I need men to stop saying that we're simple. I'm simple. I'm such a simple person. No, you're not. You're infinitely complex. You have so many different thoughts and ideas that compete with each other that you got to hold at the same time. If we stop being so dichotomous, we can look at all the different parts of our identity. Now, a lot of us, we usually really jive with the parts of our identity that we got to fight with the most. All right, if you identify as queer, that's something that you probably got to fight with hard in society. So it's the most salient part of your identity. Being a man, you got to fight in society, so it's a salient part of your identity. But really, you're a lot of things. You're black, you're a father, you're a son, you're a creator. You're a million different pieces of your identity. One of the ways that we do that is by grabbing, holding, and understanding each part of your identity is central to who you are. It's a part of you. You're not just a one unit, you're a tapestry of things. But there's parts of your identity that you don't touch. And there's parts of your identity that you ignore. You have to put hands. I'm not saying you got to spend time with every single piece of you, but you have to put hands on all these different parts of who you are to better understand what they mean, how they work for you, how they've changed. It's very important. That's how you tap in with yourself. By breaking yourself down and compartmentalizing them into a million different pieces. And understanding each one of those pieces are relevant, not just the ones that society has taught you that it's okay to be.
I think one thing I live by is I live to inspire people to live authentically with audacity. There's many people, you can say authentic living, but you're not living bold. You got to understand that God only made one. And we hear these things and we think it's a cliche, it's a cliche. Literally, there's only one you. Nobody sees the way that you see, and your values, your creativity, what you bring to the table is valuable. But a lot of times we shrink because society, culture doesn't see the value in our talent until you test it. Until you test it. That's why I'm inspired by anybody with a story, anybody that builds from the ground level, that has that entrepreneur spirit that we're born with, that dominion, that dominating spirit that says, I don't care what y'all see in me, I'm going to speak boldly, loudly, aggressively. We talked about faith earlier. Faith is the evidence of things hoped for, the substance of things not seen. I don't have to see nothing. I don't have to feel nothing. I know if I got a breathing pulse, if I got blood flowing through my veins, I have a purpose to it. And I don't care if you don't see it, you're going to see it. And when you see it, it's going to be the light that you see in me. And so that's what makes you step into a room with confidence and for him make songs, and for him do beautiful content with his family and be able to inspire the masses. Why? It's because you have a vision. You see farther than your eyes can see, which disciplines your life. Over time, that builds character. People are attracted to that. And that's how you build and grow. So
It's a good question to be about internal dialogue. And life and death are in the power of the tongue. Words have tremendous power. I try to be very vigilant with my thought processes, with the words that I allow to live rent-free in my head. And I don't allow negative thoughts to hold dominion over me. You know, I tell my son this all the time. He's only one, but I tell him the things that I tell myself. You know, that you have ironclad faith in yourself, you have absolute unwavering belief in yourself, and fear holds no dominion over you. So often, we're conditioned by society, the media, family, to hold ourselves in a negative light. And the ways that we might view ourselves, we think they're powerful. Like, I've gone through so much of my life feeling like, because I see myself as a violent person, I see myself as a violent man, that makes me strong. You know what I mean? That makes me powerful, because I come from a violent place. And so I was taught that was my power. And you know, as I've grown, I've realized that actually lack of restraint is a weakness. You know, lack of ability to regulate my emotions and to to win the war without combat is what Sun Tzu said is the art of war. And you know, that's just an example of the types of negative programming that live rent-free inside of our heads. And so that internal dialogue of you're terrible, of you're not enough, is something that I used to feel like I could never transcend. I thought this is just what it is. But I started to realize that I can answer those statements that my subconscious may feed me and allow allow that to be a comma and not a period. I can choose what a period of the sentence has. You know what I mean? I can counteract, I can hold a dialogue with that monster in my mind that wants to tell me a lot about, you know what I'm saying? That wants to be concerned more with what people think of me than what I think of myself. And that's everything. Like, it starts with the internal dialogue, and then it goes to the words that we say out loud. You know, then it goes to the words that we say in our music, then it goes to the messages that we broadcast, that we platform. You know, but it starts with the voice in it.
Final question, Jeremy. How do we learn how to show up as our authentic best self? How do we learn how to manage that? Because sometimes it's not appropriate to show up as our authentic self. We have to show up as our authentic best self. How do we learn to manage that and be able to put that forth at the appropriate times?
I think for me, the Bible is a spiritual mirror. It can read you spiritually, your spirit. You are a spirit. It's just like you wake up in the morning, you don't leave the house without looking in the mirror to see what your body look like. The Bible says you're wonderfully, fearfully made, intentional, that he got a plan for you, a plan to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope in the future. He said that every hair on your head is numbered. He knows you by name. Before you was in your mama's womb, he knew you. He made you for a reason. And even if you came through a parent that has so much negative things to say about your life, to say about what you're walking through, that you don't have a great relationship with, you came through them. It's not for them. You came through them because you got a gift inside of you to bless the world. I truly believe every single person listening, every single person in here has a design, a gift to bless the world with. Now it's your decision to move forward on it. And like you said, to push past that monster in your mind. I don't know how you can do that without Jesus. Period. I don't know how you can sustain it. You can suppress the money, the drinking, the women. You can suppress and sedate your emotions until life hits. And then when life hits, when you come to the end of yourself, that's when many turn to Jesus. Go figure. But so what I'm saying here is this: if you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you don't have life. Because from the dust to the ground, his animation power, he breathed life into you. He's a spirit. You all have a soul. You live in a body. So your spiritual level is what I'm attacking at on this panel, because we leave that to drop for what? I'm asking every single person in here to look at yourself spiritually. And that's what the Bible does. You can read that and find more about yourself. Don't listen to what they say about religion. Throw that out. He made you, an intentional father made you, crafted you with a beautiful mind for a reason. It's time to look and see what he says about your life, instead of this negative voice that tells you to end your life.
One of the ways that we show up as our authentic best self, you can't do that without practicing. And oftentimes when we say show up as our best selves, we envision showing up in front of other people. I will challenge you to practice showing up as your best self when nobody is looking. The work that happens in therapy, you don't do 45 minutes to an hour, that's not the work. That's not the work. That's the meeting. That's the reconfiguration. That's the rebranding and the reframing. The work happens when you're out in the world and things that bother you or stress you start to take place. And what you do with that and how you maneuver through those situations and those challenges, the inner voice, the inner critic, as y'all are saying. So you have to practice being the person that you say that you are. If you're a good person, make sure that you're being a good person when nobody's looking. If you're a helpful person, make sure that you're investing in community. If you say you're taking care of yourself, take care of yourself. Schedule your doctor's appointments. Schedule your physical. Go talk to the cardiologist. All of those things. You have to practice being the person you say you are, so that you can not just say it, and it can be external thought that you're trying to make internal. Rather, it's an internal action that displays on the outside. You have to convince yourself, like anybody else would have to convince you of who you are, so that when you're showing up as your authentic best self in public, it's just what you do. Like Vic said, what you say, all I did was cut the camera on. It's who you are all the time. It's just them seeing you when you cut the camera on.
Vic,
think Islam helps me to be my authentic best self. Islam is such a beautiful religion that I found very recently in the last 5 years. That it's this spiritual science that incentivizes you for being a good person. Before I was practicing Islam, I would never stop on a rainy day on the highway in Chicago to help somebody with a broken down car. You know what I mean? But once I got in tune with Islam, it showed me how those silent acts of generosity that are, not for the public, are actually more favored. You know what I mean? And bring you more favor. And starting to develop, my relationship with God, and recognizing that, man, you don't get away with anything, because I was always trying to get over, you know what I'm saying? Always trying to hit a stain. Coming up, I always felt like, if around the corner from here, probably the Dover Street Market didn't charge my card accidentally, and I got off with the Balenciaga jeans. I'm like, you gotta catch me. This was a real.
Don't get it back in blood.
I promise you. I would have took it if I had the opportunity, because that was just the way my mind was programmed. You know what I mean? But honestly, Islam really helped me to reprogram my mind. When they told me that, actually, if you turn around when you have that opportunity to basically steal, with no repercussions, if you turn around and then pay, then you be rewarded exponentially on the back end. And things like that just started to inspire me to show up as my authentic best self, because I realized that there was always someone watching. There's always an entity watching, and that I could truly benefit in a much more magnanimous way from being stand up all the time, and it helped me to show up as my authentic best self.
Kier, we want to thank you for this. We know we don't solve too many problems on a panel that's 25 minutes or so. So you guys are going to be around here over the next day or so. I would encourage people to come and have conversations with them. We understand that this is not a small problem, it's a big problem. And that people need to sort of engage and talk to people who understand how to deal with that. So we want to thank you for coming here today, and we appreciate your expertise.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Y'all make some noise, y'all.